Alright, what's going on, everybody? It's Nick Ashler. Today I'm going to be delivering another set of positional rankings. This time we're looking over offensive line. And unless it's like a crazy guard class, I'm usually going to end up combining guards and tackles together into one class and describing why I like each player. So without further ado, let's get into it because we have a lot of guys to cover. Before we do, though, a couple of guys that didn't make the cut. I like Landon Dickerson, Sam Cosme. Dylan Radunes is another guy that I really like that didn't make the cut. I think the big two right now that didn't end up getting in the final rankings as we get into Wyatt Davis were Dickerson and Radunes. But Davis is cool. He had a really good 2019, which is why he's probably here. 2020 wasn't as good, but for the most part, he seemed pretty powerful in the way he played, and he was a downhill player. He's a guard, by the way. He just struggles a lot with leverage, and that's why he's low for me. He started out as like a guard one type, but the more I watch of Elijah Vera Tucker, who we've gone over on the channel, if you haven't seen that video, make sure to check it out, the less I liked Wyatt Davis and pulled him back down my board. So he's sitting here at the number 12 spot. Number 11, we have Creed Humphrey. I love Creed Humphrey. I think he's the best center in the draft. I can't see a real weakness in his game. Other than his lack of length, and even for a center, his arms are pretty small, which is pretty interesting to think about and to watch. But he was part of that big, good Oklahoma offensive line back in 2018, I believe, with Kyler Murray. So he definitely has experience on the O-line. He's a really good center. The reason why he's here at 11 and not here at like 6 or 5 is because I just don't feel like Creed Humphrey is going to be the guy. He doesn't have the polished traits that these guys up here have. He's just average in a lot of categories. He's still pretty good, but he's average right there. So that's Creed Humphrey. Moving on to number 10, as we're trying to get through here, is Alex Leatherwood. He's an interesting player because I think he could function both at guard and tackle. I think he did really well at guard for Alabama, I believe in 2018 it was. But in 2019 and 20, he both played tackle. I thought he was going to come out last year. He didn't. He's a senior. And he plays really well. He's a good, really solid, downhill, aggressive player. He's solid in pass protection. I feel like he might be a little bit better as a guard because his length is not the greatest for a tackle. And then at times there can be speed rushers that beat him on the outside, and I'd like to see that either get shored up and polished up, or he move inside a guard where he doesn't necessarily have to deal with a lot of those speed rushers that can get the edge on him. Still, I think he's going to be really valued because of his power and his run. He's one of those tier 2 guys that we talked about, I think in the video a couple days ago. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. I had 4 tackles covered in that. Alex Leatherwood wasn't one of those guys, but he has some of the better power in that group, and he should definitely be a high second-round pick. And the lowest grade here is a 78 for Wyatt Davis, and Alex Leatherwood up here is I think a 79. So these guys keep going up. These guys aren't like third-round prospects. They're just lower on my board than the rest of these guys, like Deontay Brown, who is my guard 3, I think. Yeah, guard 3. A lot like Leatherwood, he's just a huge, hulking figure, and I think his size is going to be a lot more suited for the next level. He's pretty athletic for his size. He's 330 pounds. He plays left guard. He had a really good game against Derek Brown last year, which kind of put him on the radar for me. And this year, he kind of followed it up. His Mississippi State tape is outstanding. He has that violence and ability to get down and get dirty with in the trenches and wall out guys. He's a downhill player. I describe him as that. He can come down and he's aggressive, and he makes a lot of opens up a lot of big holes for Najee Harris. He can be a little bit, like, he needs to improve his technique. He can be a little bit too reliant on his natural traits and abilities. But as a guard, I think he should be a day 1 starter. And now he probably won't go as high as I'm projecting him, just because he didn't have that good of a Senior Bowl. But I think he's going to be one of those guys, one of those like 4th, 5th round guards that just pop up in NFL starting lineups every week because he's that good. So moving on. Of these 4, as we wait for it to load once again, I think the 3 of them, the 3 guards right here, are kind of lower than the tackle class in general. And that's why I think all 4 of those guys could potentially play guard, but Liam Eichenberg can't. I like Liam Eichenberg a lot as a left tackle. He's very polished. We went over him in that tier 2 tackle video, but he's here He's at number 9 or number 8 here because I think there are 2 guards and then the rest of the tackles that are better than him. He's offensive tackle 6 because this is such a good class. So him being at 8 below the 2 guards, don't be that surprised by that because that is who Liam Eichenberg is. If he can improve his athleticism and his foot speed, he's going to be a lot better. But I think as a day 2 player, if you're like the Cincinnati Bengals who are thinking about taking Jamar Chase for Joe Burrow at number 5, you can easily turn around and get a Liam Eichenberg in the second round and roll with him, and you're going to be just fine. He's really good. I like his length. He's a natural left tackle. There's so much to like about Liam Eichenberg. But there's a little bit more to like about Trey Smith, which is why he's rated above him. And I've been watching Trey Smith, it feels like, since 2018. He started out as tackle at Tennessee. He had some blood clot issues, which kept him out or something. So he has some injury red flags, but I think he's been able to play 2 seasons pretty healthily without issue. The cool thing about Trey Smith is he has the length to play guard or tackle. He can play wherever you want on the offensive line. He's a strong, aggressive blocker. He's going to get up in defenders' faces and run blocking. He's really solid in pass blocking. People are concerned about his athleticism, and I would agree. That's kind of why he got moved into guard, I think. But this guy's a sleeper first-round pick for me, honestly. If I was a team like the Chiefs or the Buccaneers who were drafting the late first round, I would take a risk on Trey Smith because this man is crazy. He's a heavy, aggressive player, and I think he could succeed either at tackle or guard, depending on what you would like. But these guys, this is where it kind of gets into the first round. So we have 7 guys that are graded inside the first round in terms of offensive linemen. That just goes to show how deep this class is. I think he's a really good player. He has a lot of potential behind him, and I like him more than Liam Eichenberg because of that scheme versatility, and I think he's a little bit more polished than him. Which brings us to Christian Darasaw, which is interesting. The interesting player. We talk about Christian Darasaw as being just slightly ahead of Jalen Mayfield or Liam Eichenberg. Darasaw is interesting because he came on really strong at the beginning of the year. I didn't love his tape the first time, but it was okay when I watched it. Then I went back the second time and watched it, and I kind of came to this conclusion that Christian Darasaw is a big guy and he's a powerful guy, but he's a lazy guy. And I feel like I showed a couple plays that demonstrate that in the film session from the other day, so make sure to go check that out once again. But as a tier 2 tackle, I just don't like him as much as I would like Mayfield or Tevin Jenkins, who we'll get to later in these last 5 boxes. So he's O-Lineman 6, but he's probably offensive tackle 5 on my board. I just think he has those struggles as a blocker. He's a big traits guy. And again, I love the traits and I love the power that he exhibits, but I'd rather have polish. And that is exactly something that Jalen Mayfield has at right tackle for Michigan. He's inexperienced, but there are some plays where Jalen Mayfield really shows his worth as a run blocker and a pass blocker. He will struggle against power rushers, like I said, and he can struggle sometimes against better speed rushers, but he knows how to turn them upfield and keep them out of the play. He's powerful as a run defender. I think his upper body is a little bit stronger than his lower body, so he'll have to keep developing that. But in terms of between these 2 guys, I like Mayfield better because he's a little bit more sure, and he's a better finisher. Typically, the guys that I like more are better finishers, and Darasaw is not that guy, so he's lower on the list. Samuel Cosmi is not a great finisher. He's kind of lazy and he's kind of soft, which is why he isn't even on the list to begin with. So that's kind of the philosophy that I have with my offensive tackles. I like Darasaw. I think he has a lot of good natural tools. He just needs to play a little harder and develop maybe a little bit more in terms of his technique to be a much better player. And same goes for Mayfield. I think he can be a little raw sometimes, but he's just a better finisher than Darasaw. Moving on to our offensive lineman number 4, who's actually my guard number 1. This guy, Elijah Vera Tucker. I love him, and he was originally going to be guard or O-Lineman number 3 until I watched Tevin Jenkins again, and we'll get to that. But Elijah Vera Tucker, I think he's a great guard, but I think he can also play tackle, and I think that serves to his versatility, and that is why he's higher than guys like Jalen Mayfield and Christian Darasaw on this list, because he has the versatility to play tackle if he needs, but he can also play guard, and he can do both things at a pretty high level. I love the Oregon tape for Elijah Vera Tucker because it really shows his upside as a tackle. He's an athletic guy. He has good feet. He can struggle sometimes against edge rushers and whatnot, but his fight and his dog and his aggression is great, and that's what I'm looking for in my offensive lineman, and that's why Elijah Vera Tucker's all the way here at offensive lineman number 4. So my guard rankings, this is the last guard on the list, so it would be AVT, Trey Smith, Deontay Brown, Creed Humphrey, Wyatt Davis is my guards, and then the rest of the guys are my tackles. But I really like Elijah Vera Tucker. I think he could also play tackle on, like I said. So we'll see where he goes. I think he should be a mid-first round guy, but if you get him in the 20s, he'd be a steal. Moving on to number 3 is Tevin Jenkins, man. I came into this process not loving Tevin Jenkins necessarily that much because I thought his technique wasn't as great as it could be. But further watch and just looking at tape and other people's opinions on Tevin Jenkins, I've kind of really just fallen in love with this kid. He's big, he's aggressive, he's angry, he's violent, but at the same time, he also has that technique, and especially in pass protection, that's going to keep him grounded, right? We saw Ronnie Perkins beat him in that film session, but that's a really rare occasion to see somebody beat him like that. He has a great anchor. I think people knock his length, but I think it's solid for the right tackle position. He has great athleticism. He's just really, it's hard to find a weakness on Tevin Jenkins. And the only reason he's a 3 and not an offensive tackle 1 is because of the two guys above him. Their weaknesses, they have weaknesses, but their strengths are just better qualities than Tevin Jenkins' strength is at right now. So moving on to our offensive tackle number 2, that's Penei Sewell, which is kind of, I guess, a little controversial here, if you would say. A lot of people like Sewell at 1. The guy that I have at 1 is Rashaan Slater. This kid is just awesome. But we'll go back to Sewell real quick. Sewell's athletic. He's strong. He's big. He has the makings of that left tackle character. But when I watch him as a pass protector, I don't see as good of a player as Rashaan Slater. That is why I have Rashaan Slater at 1 ultimately. I think Sewell's athleticism outshines Slater at some points. The pro day numbers kind of didn't do much to help that case off, but on the field, I mean, Penei Sewell can get down and get in the trenches and run people out of the play, like straight up. He doesn't have the strength and aggression necessarily that Rashaan Slater would have, but the lapses in Penei Sewell's technique in terms of making contact with guys in pass protection, stopping his feet, having lazy hand placement, just little things like that kind of pull him down for me. Over a guy like Rashaan Slater, who uses great footwork, keeps his feet active throughout the rep, puts his hands in a place where he can win with lackluster length, and be just a great player. That's why I ultimately have Rashaan Slater higher than Penei Sewell, is that technique. And when you're evaluating offensive linemen, you kind of have to be nitpicky with how their technique is and what happens there. And for Rashaan Slater, I think he's a much better technique guy than Penei Sewell. I both think they're both top 5 players to me, but at the end of the day, if I was drafting and I had both these guys on the board, I would take Slater over Sewell, just because I think he's more ready to go day 1, and I think his floor is higher than Penei Sewell's floor and could potentially be close to the level of Penei Sewell's ceiling. So that's about it on these offensive tackle rankings, or offensive line rankings rather. We have 12 guys here. Like I said, other guys include Sam Cosme, Landon Dickerson. He's just not on this list, honestly, because of the injuries. He has a lot of injuries in college, and I didn't feel confident in that. But then you have Dylan Radunes is another guy there. But those 3 are probably my 13, 14, 15 in terms of this class. These are my top 12 as of now. But if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and keep supporting the channel. We have, after these offensive lineman rankings, I think we have receiver, an edge left, and maybe D-line. I'm still deciding whether I want to do D-line or not. But if you guys enjoyed, make sure to stick around and drop a like, and we'll see you guys soon. Peace out.